Let's begin with a deep breath. Right into our belly button, down into the bottom of our core. And then let go with a sigh, just like that. Okay, so I'm here to talk about some stuff that some people feel ashamed about, uncomfortable about. It's part of our programming. So I just want you to just have an open mind, and we're going to try and clear some of that out. And then we're going to talk a little bit about getting ourselves back to self-love and self-pleasure. And it's a bit of a job. Sorry. It's all an adventure right now. We are going through exploring ourselves and exploring what is broken down and what has been programmed into us to kind of block us and keep us small. So we're going to start off with talking about self-love. So self-love is basically us choosing ourselves first. Some people might call that selfish. And I bet you 10 to 1, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about, oh, don't be so selfish and don't whatever. The only reason there's a self-motivated requirement in that, when you're selfish to yourself, and I'm not talking about harming people kind of selfish where you're just kind of like F you. Well, you might even say F you to people that are bothering you or whatever, but the kind of selfish where you just don't care about anybody at all or whatever, that's a different thing. I'm talking about selfish where it's like, hey, I'm choosing me first. I got my first Saturday off in months and I'm not helping Joe move because I've helped Joe move 3 times or whatever. That's self-love. It's like, hey, Joe, sorry, you can't do it today. And you're going to have to figure it out yourself. And keeping things in balance and that kind of stuff, or choosing to spend that money on you or go out to a show or whatever. I went to a ballet with a friend yesterday. It was beautiful. It was the first time I'd been out and done anything for myself in a long, long time. I'm thinking about going to the new Ant-Man movie tomorrow or whatever, because my son said it was good or whatever, or cheap night or whatever. Those are first levels of self-love. Now, when we get deeper and we start to get into the awakening through sexuality parts of it, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But let's begin with what happens to our body and what's happening in our system when we're not having self-love. If we don't think we're worthy and we don't come first and we don't choose ourselves, we just become a robot. I recently went through having to move out of my own house a little while back, and it was just like a big mess, and I was loading things into trailers, and I just became like a robot. I was just walking between carrying stuff and moving stuff, and my kids were helping me, and I just shut off, and it wasn't no longer about me. It was just about getting the task done. That's not self-loving. That's just basically wearing your body into the ground until the task is done. When we start talking about self-love, what are the things that are feeding and energizing you? Do you go for a salt bath once in a while? Do you use essential oils? Do you spend a little bit more money on yourself? Do you go buy a special treat once in a while? Do you go out for a meal? Do you do all these things, or do you have to pay the bills first? And do you have to serve everybody else, help the kids and all this kind of stuff? Where's the thing where you bought something for yourself and said that this will work and stuff like that is worth it for me? That's the first level of self-love. The second level of self-love is honoring your body and honoring the systems and the needs of our body. What are the things that our body needs? Well, we need to bathe once in a while. We need to drink water. We need to eat foods that we love. And I'm not talking about eat stuff that's health foods and is supposedly good for the world and all this kind of stuff. Eat stuff that you love, your body's calling for. What are things that you do to give yourself pleasure in your body? So a pleasure could be as simple as just having a nice salt bath and turning off the lights and having a candle and close your eyes and calm. Pleasure could be, oh, this feels really nice when I just gently just tickle the back of my arm and feel the hairs on my arm, or caress my face, or maybe some people like a kind of a slappy. It's kind of like a sparking sensation, and our body responds to all these things. It likes watery, and it likes fiery, and it likes all these kinds of things. These are some of the simple pleasures. The next one is in pleasure, when we start talking about self-pleasure. So this is going to kind of key people and say, oh, I don't want to talk about this. This is shameful or dirty or whatever. There are church doctrines and all these things that'll tell you it's illegal to pleasure yourself. In the Catholic Church for 2,000 years, it's been a stonable offense, and your partner could turn you in, and you could be stoned to death for just giving yourself pleasure. Why is that? What's so bad about that? Why does the church even care about our pleasure for ourselves? No, it's a control mechanism. Our body, it needs regulation. It needs sexuality. It needs stuff happening in our body, or else we get out of balance. Here, a good example is look up the term hysteria. Hysteria. It was a thing that women were commonly diagnosed with in early 1900s England. And basically, it was a woman that had not had enough orgasmic release in her life. She was hysterical. She would get on laughing fits and she'd be very easily triggered, etc. There was a medical condition called hysteria. And the cure for that medical condition was for a woman to go to a doctor. You can look this up. There's actually a movie. You can look it up. It's called Hysteria, where basically the woman would go and she'd proper British skirt up, and a doctor would give her orgasmic pleasure through his hand. And these poor doctors were getting injured over time. So it was actually, the whole movie is about this guy creating the first vibrator. It was an actual real thing. Hysteria, hysterical, a woman being hysterical. I'm not saying it's just men, because men have blue balls and they have similar things. But our bodies need it. It was actually medically prescribed at that time as a proper form of medical treatment. Now, what we need to understand, when our body is properly pleasured and we're feeling pleasure and we get pleasure regularly, and we have that orgasmicness inside of our body, that energetic release where we feel lots of pleasure in our body, our brain gives off all these beautiful hormones and oxytocins and serotonins and all these things we're deficient of. Why do you think we're in a world right now that's so full of deficiencies and people taking pills to normalize themselves and not be depressed and all this kind of stuff? The biggest normalization for all this kind of stuff is built right into our body, our orgasmicness. So, and now I want to get a few things straight. So there's a lot of people out there that are saying that pleasure and all this kind of stuff is bad, and people are doing too much of it, and all this kind of stuff, especially men, they're masturbating too much. That's the term that we use to create this negative thing, but it's giving self-pleasure. If you're going 15 times a day, yes, there might be, but 2 or 3 times a day, if that is what your body is needing and there's not an unconscious pull all the time, it's not that bad of a thing. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to hurt you. You are giving pleasure. You are going into a meditative state. Your body is relaxing and calming down and becoming very grounded through this pleasure practice. Now, some people say, okay, well, that's porn and all this other kind of stuff. Well, whatever tool you need to be able to get to your orgasmicness or whatever is up to you. Women use porn just as much as men. So to shame and blame when people aren't getting sexuality in normal ways, or they're feeling really pulled or whatever, why not use self-pleasure? This is not a bad thing. This is part of the normal process of our body. I will tell you right now, when you have pleasure, there's a release that goes up your central channel. It's a burst of energy that clears out all the stuff that's stuck in your chakras. Detritus is what I call it. It's like I don't know, like let's say a cave crashed in or whatever on your central channel or whatever, and it's filled with all this stuff from trauma and wounds and pain and suffering and all this kind of stuff that isn't serving you. You clear it out and get your chakras rotating again and get everything normalized. This is a tool that we can use. And we're not even, this is just for yourself first, getting to understand your body, what feels good, what parts like to be touched, all these kinds of things. Here's the first stage. The next stage is then making it an explorative process. So I'm going to go and lay down and I'm going to set some candles and I'm going to lay with myself and I'm going to explore myself, explore my body, touch myself, look at myself with a mirror, look at things to start to feel good about myself, start to explore things, lean into stuff. Maybe partner said, hey, your winky is too small, or your breasts are too small, or you have too much meat down there, or whatever you want to call it. These are all things that are shames and traumas and stuff that were given by a partner to kind of shut us down or to belittle us or other things. When we go into these areas and we start looking at ourselves and start to explore and start to find out about sexuality and not make it a thing that you turn the light switch off and you go and do, and it's kind of shamed and whatever, and you start to say, oh, this feels really good. I love it when my body feels this way. I love this. This is self-love. Self-loving, looking at the parts of your body and saying, hey, this is perfect size for me and there's nothing wrong with it. And maybe you've never even looked down there, or you were ashamed to look down there, or you were told not to touch yourself, or you're going to grow hair in your palms, or or whatever. That was stuff that was told to me as a boy, as a man. It's all bullshit. My body's perfectly normal, and bodies come in all shapes and sizes and bends and curves and meatiness and hairiness and not hairiness and whatever. And we just got to keep going in and saying, no, this is me. This is me. I love myself. There's nothing wrong with myself. I value myself. I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. Once we have this, we start to take our power back. We start to trust ourselves, and we start to say, okay, this is what I want. This is what makes me feel good. This is it makes me happy. All this kind of stuff. If you are feeling good, what's going to happen? You're going to be in a high vibration. And if we could have people being sexual with themselves at minimum, once you get comfortable with being sexual with yourself, you maybe start making agreements with other people. Some of the things we're going to talk about in Awakening Through Sexuality is creating relationship agreements, finding people instead of dating and trying to get to marriage before you choose sexuality, or feel ashamed and go have one night stands at the bar just because you want to have sex or whatever. Instead, what if you could have an agreement with somebody that you'd love or you're connected with or whatever, and say, hey, I'd like to explore this. I'm not ready to get married and I'd like to understand all this stuff. You may be able to create an agreement where now all of a sudden you can have your needs met without having to go and be married and go through all the process and maybe that trauma again or whatever. Creating something that you can start to explore things. And we haven't even talked about the healing benefits yet. If you can create relationship agreements with people and say, okay, I have some trauma and I want to explore this stuff, and I want to do yoni massage or linga massage or these kind of things with a partner, and this could be fun, and can we do this in a way that's unshamed and connected and intimate and make it fun and playful or whatever. Something magic starts to happen. This is stuff I've explored in my own world, and it's not about having hundreds of partners or these kind of things. It's about creating connection with people that you want to connect with. Bodies have natural attractions. People will pull together to each other. People that have similar traumas and wounds and stuff like that. This is part of the relationship stuff. It's not about go and join up with this person. It's go and join up and see if you can work through things. And if you can work through things, something more intimate and really deeply connected starts to grow, and then it creates a relationship. But now instead we're kind of chasing relationship stuff so that we can share sexuality and pleasure and stuff like that before we even know the person, and it's a big mess. And I'm not saying we just go and shack up with someone. I'm just saying we create connection. We know ourselves, we know our body, and then we'll choose people that want the same things for their body, and really beautiful, intimate, loving connections can begin to happen that couldn't happen before in the old environment. So self-love and self-pleasure should be a part of everybody's everyday practice right now. And being able to find people that you can share that with or be in the same room with or whatever can be beautiful and cool and fun. But if we're all shamed about it, and we want to be ashamed, and it's like cover up our privates and cover up our bodies, and I don't want to show any of this kind of stuff, that's not the innocent, pure, loving beings that we came here as. That's shaming that came, and oh, your body's too fat, or you're ugly, or you're something wrong with it, or whatever. It's not true. When you get in a room with another person and they're looking at your body and saying that's beautiful and all this kind of stuff. I used to think I was fat or whatever. Well, I wear size large shirts and size 36 pants. I'm not fat in that way. But at one point I thought, and it was like, oh, I have breasts and all this kind of stuff. Well, bodies have overhangs and different things or whatever. I don't feel that anymore. I don't project that. And people keep telling me, are you losing weight? Well, I'm more and more confident in myself. I'm not projecting fat. I'm not projecting that I feel uncomfortable with myself. What are you doing right now? Do you feel fat? Do you feel uncomfortable? I'll tell you, the most freeing experience that you can ever have is to share that with another person, and to go in and lean in and be courageous with them and say, hey, do you think I'm fat or whatever? No, you're beautiful. I love you. And this is amazing, or something like that. Where can you go and do that? I'm creating communities. I'm creating places where we can start to find people to share that stuff with, and normalize the fact that having a human body has some element of self-pleasure, of sexuality, etc. It's all been turned off to shut us down and to make us small and make us angry and feel like we're not worthy. The more, if everybody just found a partner and had more sexuality on a regular basis and more orgasms on a regular basis, this whole planet would be healed in like a week. If we could just have that happen to the whole planet. But no, instead people go into shame and guilt and discomfort and feeling uncomfortable, or what their priest said, or what their grandma said, or their auntie said, or their mom said, or father said, or whatever, about sexuality, because they didn't get any. They were products of the same conditioning. So we're now normalizing sex and self-pleasure. I get to choose my body, and I get to choose that I'm attracted to someone, and I can say to somebody, hey, I'm attracted to you, or whatever. And I'm hoping that that person, instead of responding from their shame and guilt or whatever, maybe they're attracted too, but it's like, oh, if I say I'm attracted, then that person might be want to be sexual with me. Well, no, that's a choice. That's a discussion. That's a whatever. It's never a, hey, we have to do this because we said we were attracted to each other. No, it's all bullshit. We are normalizing the fact that we have human bodies, and those human bodies want to be attracted to other people. And it's not about just finding multiple people to do this stuff with. Find somebody that you love and share with them. And does that mean you have to be married right away? No, it doesn't mean you have to be married. I want you to be sexually compatible and comfortable and work through all your shit and all this kind of shit beforehand, because it's just going to explode afterwards and cause you a whole bunch of trauma. But if you can normalize and build a relationship contract and be with somebody that you can trust and share that without losing your house and having to combine your families and combine your finances and all this kind of shit, would that not be the place to explore it while you're independent and two entities separate? And then say, hey, I love this. This is fun. Hey, let's join together and let's join our families and let our kids meet each other and all this kind of stuff. It's a whole different world when we're choosing for ourselves and choosing from self-love. Self-love is not shacking up with someone so that we can have pleasure on it a couple times a week or whatever. You're going to want to connect with someone that wants to have pleasure every night of the week or 3 times on Sunday or whatever. This is the stuff that we're creating. So let's normalize our self-love and our self-pleasure and get back to a world where sex is healing, sex is changing, sex is not an instantaneous bond that you're stuck to for the rest of your life. Because trust me, there's tons and tons of people that go out for one-night stands on a regular basis and go to the bar or go on a date and have one or whatever. And then it's like, oh, this doesn't work out, but they're not having the discussions. They're not building any connection. And it's just like, oh, I got to stay arm's length until I can trust that this person's good enough. Bullshit. No, we find these people that we want to connect with. We follow the body polls. We do all this kind of stuff. And then we have discussions and say, hey, I'd like to share this pleasure with you or whatever. And I want to stay in balance. And here's how it works. And then you create an agreement. You create a relationship agreement out of it. You don't go attached and say, okay, well, we're bonded now because we slept together one night or whatever. No, we're bonded together because we love the pleasure that we share. We love each other. We have a balance. We're feeling good. We're not attached. We're not hanging off the other person. This is the new world of normalized self-love and pleasure, self-pleasure. We're starting to understand our needs and our bodies first, and then joining with other people and making agreements and saying, hey, would this feel good? And do you want that same thing? And they're like, yeah, I would. It's been a long time and I didn't know how to ask or whatever. Well, now we're asking and we're starting to make it normal. It's a huge thing. So I'm going to try and do another one on more the actual process of self-pleasure, less about just touching ourselves or whatever, more just how to set the space, clear the container, clear the room, do the breathing, and get that stuff set up. I'll probably do it tomorrow, Monday. What is that? The 20th of February. And just get people starting to get into their body, starting to use some of these things, starting to move the energy, starting to have bigger orgasms, all this kind of stuff, and talk about how that's possible. And it's not explicit or whatever. It's just, how do you breathe into your body? How do you move the energy? How do you shift it in your body? How do you get it higher? How do you carry it forward, etc.? And then the more and more orgasmicness, the more pleasure, the more light we bring into our body, the more we relax afterwards, the better we feel. And the better we feel means a higher vibration. And then everybody's healed from that. So anyways, there's the conclusion of this one, learning self-pleasure and normalizing it, and learning self-love. I love you. You have a good day. It's a pretty intense day. I'm starting to feel a little sleepy here. So I love you all. Talk to you soon.